My team rocks. Love it. So, my team rocks is a statement. And we actually heard a lot of those statements. We felt the energy last night, right? My team rocks. What I want to share with you today is, first of all, I want to give you a promise. Effective communications and maximize your team's capabilities. My promise here today, this very short time we have together, I'm going to give you actual skills to walk out of this room and help improve your teams. By improving your teams, you're going to improve your leadership, you're going to engage your teams, and you're going to maximize your team's capabilities. Would that benefit you? Sure, let's get started. So, it's about 7 years ago. Actually, I vividly remember it. I was standing in a field, and I just led some teams in some training. And at the time, I was working as a training officer for the fire department, and it was one of those fun days for us. We were burning down houses. So, what happens naturally when we burn houses down for training is our colleagues have some reason just to show up. Because not only are we firefighters on duty, we're also firefighters off duty. And when you see the calm, you like to show up and see what's going on. So one of my colleagues, a highly respected colleague of mine, and really respected in the leadership role, showed up. And we're having this conversation. And I really always have respected this guy. And he's just been one of those wonderful people that, just always there for you. I said, Jamie, I'm really working on this leadership stuff, and I really want to get better. Give me one thing I can do to become a great leader. You need to shut up. That's what he said to me. It was one of the greatest leadership gifts I've ever received. You need to shut up. It literally felt like a punch in the gut. I mean, here was a friend telling me to shut up, and he was serious. But if you think about it, we've been, here I've been saying this, he's such a great conversationalist, right? That's what I was thinking, right? Because I'm always having conversations with him. It was one-sided, wasn't it? And he'd been just sitting there taking it, and finally I gave him an opening. What did he do? He punched me in the gut. But honestly, I really believe it was out of love. I asked to help develop myself. And really, that led me on a journey. So what I'm going to share with you is 7 years of what I've been working on to improve my leadership skill around these core leadership skills. First one's active listening. And I know we say you need to actively listen, but I'm going to give you some skills to take away that really make it effective. Because, first of all, you have to have a compelling reason why. Did I have one? Absolutely. I really wanted to be a great leader. So you have to have a compelling reason why, and I wanted to learn. So the first thing I did is I really focused on active learning, and I'm going to show you some 7 years of my experience of what works. The second thing is reflective thinking. And finally, is powerful questioning. And all three of them combined are really add magic and will improve your team engagement, but also improve your leadership at the same time. So, active listening. What I found from just my own experience, let me step back before I tell you how to do it. Let's find out where you're at in this room. Let's have an honest look, because I just said if you don't have a compelling reason why, you may not care what I share with you today. So let's gauge our active listening. On average, think about this, on average on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, you listen very, very actively all the time. On a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to ask you to stand up when you hear your number. On average, I know the conversation will change with how interested you are, but on average, what's your scale? 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. When you hear your number, I'm going to ask you to stand up. We're going to go through all the numbers. We're going to start with number 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2, and 1. What did you notice? Yeah, we're average. Wait, stay standing, because I got a second question to ask you.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. But in all honesty, I mean, no one even stood up for the first couple numbers, did we?
Peer pressure. Nobody else did that.
Yeah. All right, so listen, most everybody was really on the average side, about 5 or 6. Okay? But there's 2 parts of a conversation, aren't there? There's the other person. So, think about the people you interact with and you communicate. How effective are they communicating? So when you hear the number, I'm going to have you sit down. So 10, 9, if there are 10, sit down. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When I do that, most of the time, the number I hear most often, 6 or 7 for us. But we often view the other people as lower than us. Oh, they never listen. They're a 5 or 6. The funny thing is, we are the other people, aren't we? But if you think about 7, let's give the benefit of the doubt and we'll bump it up because it was really about the 5 or 6 in this room. Let's go to 7. If we're only listening 70% of the time, and they're only listening 70% of the time, how much missed communications are we having? Well, a lot. If I left, that's almost a third we're missing. If I left every third word out of this speech, would it make sense? If you took a simple song like Happy Birthday, we skipped every third word, would it make sense? It would start out making sense. Happy birthday, you. Happy, you. Right? It doesn't work. Because we're missing a third of the communications. I think we found the problem, didn't we? So what I want to share is we have challenges. So it's not just us. We have things that are disrupting our world, aren't we? Anybody already been texted, phone called, email, bombarded with that? What else goes on in your world that distracts you? I mean, you can't go to a restaurant without a TV screen in the background that's distracting you, people walking by. True? So we've got these constant distractions occurring. We have the ability actually to pull that back in. One of the things you see up there as a brain is called a narrative mind. That's that little voice in your head all the time, right? Let's look at your narrative mind right now. I'm going to actually ask you to pull your phone out. Okay, I'm going to do it with you. So let's pull your phone out. Most speakers don't tell you to pull your phone out. Turn it on and select the camera mode. Now, once you select the camera mode, turn it on, it's all about me. Also known as the selfie. Take a look at yourself. Did you hear all the language going on? You can't even be present with yourself. You went right to narrative mind. Too early. What else did I hear? Right? You went straight to a narrative mind. Look at this. Go ahead, selfie pictures. Go for it. Hey, listen. Let's have fun. Because if you're having fun, I'm having fun, okay? So feel free to jump in, take some selfies. I love it. Actually, if you have your phone still out, try to be present with yourself. It's actually a great skill building technique, but it's actually one of the most difficult things you can do is make eye contact with yourself. But it's a great skill building technique. But the point I was trying to make is we have that narrative mind. That's that little voice going all the time. Make sense? And we do that when people are talking, don't we? And with my friend that was such a good listener, the one that punched me in the gut later, I was always like, man, as soon as he stops talking, I can tell him how to fix this. He actually said one more thing that kind of hit me pretty hard. He said, not only do you talk all the time, but you ask questions, and you even answer them for me. Boy, that's a big ego. And he was right. I actually thought of conversations where I did that. And I wasn't trying to be malicious. I was just thinking out loud and talking it through. But how could it's insane to be speaking for somebody else. I was in my narrative mind often. So We did the selfie activity. Active listening, here's the thing I found. There's two things I really found became effective when we were active listeners. And the first one is being present. And the second one is being curious. And we're going to go into each one of those. So what does being present look like? It's about having a direct experience. So a narrative mind, you're with somebody, all that language is going on, you're not really paying attention, things are distracting you, right? When you're truly present with somebody, you're having a direct experience. Now, from the neuroscience, why that's important, we actually eliminate all those filters. We actually take in more information. So it's a much more effective way of listening. We're really there. We have appropriate expressions. We naturally acknowledge. What are some natural acknowledgments? Head nods, eye contact, right? We'll even make some sounds, I guess. The focus is on them and their agenda when we're fully present. The second part of this is being curious. And I love visualizing a kid. What does a curious kid look like? Yeah, he just did it. The eyes are wide open, right? They have wide open eyes. They're leaning in. They have this big smile. They have this thirst for information. And they often ask lots of questions, don't they? They really want to know about you. Our goal is to, instead of listening to respond, we actually want to listen to listen. Listen to listen. So let's demonstrate this. I'm going to ask my volunteers from yesterday that were in my conflict program. I'm going to put two of them on the spot right now. I just saw two people that I know their names. I know they're on the spot. Scott, would you join me up here? And you actually, what we're going to do is what we did yesterday to show the group. And the other person, he's not making eye contact with me. He was until I looked at him. Tom, would you come up? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We're not going to duke it out. Just introduce yourself. So I'm going to have you stand over here in front of me. Okay. No, we're not going to thumb wrestle, actually. What we're going to focus on first is actually this first component, which is active listening. And you're simply going to be present and be curious. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing we did yesterday. Okay. I'm going to ask one of you to share something positive in your life for 1 minute. Something's going on that's positive in your life. And the other one's going to just be present and curious. I'm demonstrating this because I'm going to have you do it in a minute. Okay? So, who would like to share something positive in their life?
I think Tom does.
Tom? All right. And Tom, I'm going to have probably just bring this between us, and I think it should work. So, what's something positive going on in your life?
So, Scott, I just wanted you to know that recently my daughter was invited to join the company of her dance team. So, I've been really excited about it. We've been doing a lot of traveling this year, and I'm very proud of her. She's been doing a great job.
All right. Awesome. Now, there's a second piece, but we don't want to tell them. I know you guys are advanced right now. If you could hang tight right here, we're going to get into the second piece. But I first need them to stand up and do this, okay? And there's a reason why I'm not telling you the second part. They probably already know from our class yesterday. Stand up. Here, wait, before you stand up, pick a color, red or blue. If you're red, put your hand on your heart. If you're blue, put your hand on your head. Stand up and go find somebody that's doing the same thing. All right, put your hand up if you do not have a partner yet.
12:30. Coffee helps. That's for sure.
All right, so what you're going to do for the next 1 minute, 60 seconds. Everybody got a partner? We good? Lexus, hey. For the next 60 seconds, what I'm going to ask you to do is share. We're going to take turns, so one person at a time. Share something positive in your life for 60 seconds. You're just telling a story. The other person is practicing the skill. What are the two steps? Be present and be curious. Okay? Here's the great thing. The room is going to get loud with a lot of people speaking. And I've actually done this in manufacturing plants. Can you imagine how loud that is? And when people can be truly present and curious, they can block out all the other noise and really be there for the person. Okay? Being present is a gift. So with that, 60 seconds. The one with the taller person can go second. All right. 60 seconds, begin. Positive story. Positive story. All right, let me get your attention. Time. So that was the first component. It's called active listening, okay? Being present and being curious. Isn't it nice for somebody to actually listen to you? She's actually clapping. Isn't it nice? In a very short time, you can build a relationship. In 60 seconds with somebody you don't know, do you feel closer to them? Your besties over there. That's Robin and Darlene. I'm not surprised. So just in 60 seconds, you can make an impact on somebody's life. And often, it's the best thing you can do is just be there for them and hear what they have to say. Okay? Now there's a second part, so you need to hang tight. And it's really quick. Let me tell you the second part. But there's a reason why I didn't share this with you beforehand, and I'll tell you in a second. So you already did that. The second part is called reflective thinking. And reflective thinking is simply pause and reflect. And then you want to capture and clarify what you heard. I purposely did not tell you this ahead of time. Why? Yeah, you wouldn't be present. You'd be in your narrative mind writing a script, and I know that from personal experience. They said, when you listen, you need to paraphrase. I'm writing a script. They went on to Act 2. Now I'm writing that script. They went on to Act 3, and I'm writing that script, and I was so friggin' confused and lost the time they got done. I just like, that didn't work. But when you're present and curious with somebody, and you reflect, now I'm purposely delaying this out a little bit, because it's actually been a minute or two since you heard your story. But if you pause, reflect, you know what they said. Now it's really important to capture the essence of what was said. You don't need to parrot back what you heard. There's a difference. Okay, what's the essence of what you heard? And these guys have been here for a long time, right? So I'm going to really test Scott here. Scott thought he was great because he put Tom on the spot, but now we're going to put Scott on the spot.
Uh-oh.
What's the essence of what you heard in his story?
His daughter, he's very excited that she joined the dance team.
How'd he do? No, seriously, he did it great. Most people want to go on for a couple minutes describing what he heard. Did he capture the essence of what he said?
That's it.
Beautiful. That's all he needs to do is, if I understood you correctly, you're excited about your daughter and the dance team. That's the essence of what you heard. You don't need to go into detail. It was this team was on this day. It was your daughter. You just don't. They know that, don't they? Why is it important to clarify? Man, it validates them. They know you're listening. But it also confirms the message. No, you missed the point. It's X, Y, Z. Have you ever heard that? It happens all the time, but when you clarify, you're going to actually eliminate that and go down the wrong path. Okay? First of all, help me acknowledge these two gentlemen, and I got a book for both of you guys.
Oh, thanks, brother.
Hey,
thanks again. Thanks, brother.
I want you to pause and reflect now and share back your essence. Again, it should be a couple sentences, 5 to 7 sentences, a couple words, 5 to 7 words. What did you hear? Okay? And actually, you might need to partner up because we're going to switch partners in the field. So go ahead and pause and reflect, capture and clarify what you heard to the other person now. Go. 10 seconds. Stay standing, stay standing. All right, let me call time. The reason I ask you to keep it short and keep it to 10 seconds, what is your goal? One of your goals? You want to validate and clarify, but you want to keep it short. Why? You want them to continue and keep talking. There's a couple indicators that determine a good conversation. The first indicator is a good conversation is often equal to the time that I speak. Right? As a leader, whose should we be looking at interest the best? The people we serve. So you really want to have the other person speak the most. So you really want to get it back to them. Make sense? You'll have your time, right? We have a lot of opportunities as leaders to speak. But to actually build the capabilities of your team, you need to listen more. I said there's 2 times. The second time, a good predictor of a good conversation is how you begin. That's why we always say to start with the positive information. If you start positive, typically the entire conversation will be viewed as positive. If you start negative, you messed up on this, but you did really great over here, that's all wasted. So, let's switch roles. Let's practice the skill for the other side. What's the 2 things we're going to do, my listeners? Be present and be curious. Something positive. Wait a minute. That'd be too easy, right? You want to go a little deeper? Let's go with a negative story. If you don't want to share a personal story, share a bad customer service experience. And my folks in the class yesterday know we need to go at least 2 minutes because for some of you this is still therapy. Okay? So 2 minutes, something negative that you'd be willing to share or bad customer service experience. My listeners, my skill builders, be present and curious. Go. All right. So I told you I'd give you 2 minutes. Not a single person was looking up here, so that's a clue. I gave you 3 minutes. Just for time's sake, I think we need to move on. But it's funny. I loved watching the body language. So many times we focus on how do I look and all this body language stuff. What happens when you're being curious, being present and curious? It naturally happens. Your body will follow your brain. Does that make sense? Yes. So now you're having a direct experience. You're nice and open. You're making great eye contact. You're very welcoming. Your body will naturally open up. Isn't that awesome? You don't have to think, what is my body? Where did I put my hand? That's nonsense. If you're thinking about that, what are you not thinking about? The person there, right? So we need to do the second part, which is reflective thinking. Pause and reflect, and then capture and clarify what you heard in about 10 seconds. Please go. All right, let me call time. All right, so put your hands like this. Look at your partner, tell them they're awesome, give a high 10. So far we've covered the first 2 parts on your worksheet, and the first 2 parts of this program. Actively listen and reflective thinking. Okay, now they are distinct parts, and I think hopefully you saw the reason why we kept them separate. The third part we're going to cover is powerful questioning. So actually Sandy shared, I was in Australia a couple of weeks ago, and then prior to a couple of months ago, I was doing a similar training with the senior leader team, and we got to the point of asking questions, and I kind of did my default answer. He said, what types of questions should you ask your team? And I guess I kind of defaulted to my coach answer, and I said, well, you want to ask open-ended questions. You want to ask questions that start with like what and how. You want to ask questions that are really based on what you're hearing. And one of the young senior directors said, that's not good enough for me. I want more. So I'm thinking, okay, what do I have in my toolbox? And it hit me. I've been using a model for years with teams and have had absolutely phenomenal success. I've actually done it with Harley Davidson. I had absolutely phenomenal success. I bring teams together and I work them through a problem-solving model. And there's core questions that we ask. And when one of the teams alone, one of the little problems they solved, they thought it was a little innocuous little problem. They were projecting over $1 million savings on this little nuisance thing. When they actually did the data on it, it was going to probably save them $1 million. And this was like 6 people sitting at a table for a couple hours during a session. So it's a really, really, really powerful tool. And he made me realize that I have not shared that with other leaders until then. So now you're actually the gift of this question also. What types of questions should you ask your team? And there's 4 types of questions we're going to cover today. But let's set the stage first. Your primary role is a facilitator. This is not your agenda, and there's a couple reasons for that. When you're working with your teams, if you truly want to get the best out of your teams, ask them. Why? Why do you want to ask your teams? They're the ones that know. I hate to say it, but when I did the higher level senior leader teams, they struggled the most because they didn't have the data they needed on the smaller problems on the line. It was actually the teams that did the work that were the most effective results when we walked through this process. They're closest to the problems, but they're also closest to the solutions. They really are. They have the best answers. Now here's the great thing as a leader. Ultimately, often it's still your choice, right? But are you smarter with one choice that you think is good or a whole team of choices that you think is good? Absolutely. And the crazy thing is, the more you let go of that power, the more powerful you become. It's really interesting dynamic. So the second piece is welcome conflict that challenges the process. I'm not talking about the conflict that just, Mary did this last time, she pissed me off. Not that little nonsense conflict, right? Conflict about the process. This won't work. You need to welcome that. Some corporations have actually hired people that's their job. That's never going to work. You've got people in your work and you have to pay for them. They just come for free, right? But you actually, even though sometimes they're difficult, aren't they? But sometimes you need that. You need that counter because we have a tendency sometimes to do groupthink and not challenge and really do new things. But if you're not doing new things, you end up firefighting all the time. That's one of the things in the criteria they talk about. Stop firefighting and fix your problems. So welcome conflict. You're not going to find a high-performing team that did not go through significant conflict, internally and externally. So the team had to go through that, but even the organization was against the team at times. Make sense? You're not going to find a high-performing team. I've never met one. And they're rare. They truly are rare. And you just know it when you see one. Because these people are friends, not while they work there. Anybody think they've been on a high-performing team? Are you friends with people? And you could have worked with them 20 years ago. Look, they're all nodding their heads. They communicate with them on a regular basis. They went through so much conflict, so much just so much difficulties that they have a bond that you'll never separate. And it could have been 20 years ago, and they still talk. Because when they were on that team, they talked every day. And they went through incredible, incredible conflicts. True? Absolutely. So you have to welcome conflict. I know it's often like, oh, no, it's getting uncomfortable. That's when the magic happens. Address concerns that are not being said. If you're going through the process, problem solving has many decisions along the way. And if you're really sensing people aren't buying into decisions in any one of these types of questions, you need to stop and challenge it. Because you get the yes, and you can see that, you can ask somebody, you can tell on the phone, right? When people, so does this sound good? Yeah, it sounds good. Are they bought in? No. And you need to challenge this during the process as you go through. Because if not, your end result, you walk out of the room, they're going to go down, have something to eat, and say, this is never going to work. Right? So you really need to challenge the process as you go. So now, the questions are actually on the back of your sheet, so it's nothing you need to write down. But I got a few points to tell you. For my Myers-Briggs practitioners, and Robin's going to actually love this, she did the Mind Matters. This is actually based on personality typing, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So in the bottom corner, for those folks that are interested in that, I got the secondary word. But the key word, the first category is facts. And I'm going to share some questions you can ask. Before I show you the questions, something I want you to think about is what questions work for you. Because this can be asked every day. Now, when I said facilitation, I actually did facilitate problem solving. We came for the purpose of fixing problems, right? Spent a couple hours fixing a problem, and we worked through this process. But also these questions can be asked to individuals or your teams on a daily basis. Does that make sense? That work? Great. So facts. Here's the questions. What are the facts? What does our experience tell us? What is known? What data is available? What are the details? And I added a couple more of my own, just the way I say it. So there's two more. I might just say, hey, Tom, help me understand the situation. Scott, bring me up to date with what's happening. And I might just casually say it, but I'm getting the facts of the situation. That's your first step. Truly understand. Now, what you're going to find out is some of these are very natural for you. The research would say 2 of the 4 types of questions are actually natural for you based on your personality typing. And I'll cover that a little bit further at the end. The second category is possibilities. So it's questions about the future, question about what is possible. And here are some questions you can ask. What are the possibilities? What is the big picture? What are the patterns that we're seeing with this problem? What could we do differently to solve this? What does your gut tell me? And lastly, again, a couple phrases I would use naturally. What do you think our options are? What else might work? My encouragement is look through that sheet, or there's some space for you to write in your own. What are some questions you would ask about possibilities? You may do it already. But again, 2 of these areas are very natural. The first 2 boxes we just covered are very natural. One of the 2 are very natural for you. The other one you probably have to put a little more energy into. So the third part is logic. Questions based on applied principles, questions about logic. And here are some questions for you. What are the pros and cons? What is the most consistent solution? What are the key tasks? What is the most logical approach? And what is the likely outcome? And the 2 more that I've added, what do you think the best solution is? And lastly, why do you think it will work? One more topic is impact. And impact, so here's so far what we've done. We've looked at the logic. We looked at the possibilities. And actually, let me go back on possibilities. I really need to cover one more thing. I went way back. Just go back to possibilities for 1 minute. I really think this is important. When you identify the facts and you go into possibilities, it's not about judging. You really need an opportunity to brainstorm. And here's another thing I noticed when I worked with a lot of teams. You want them to let go and relax. But as a facilitator or as a leader, you want to challenge them. So it's kind of a power struggle thing, right? You want them to relax. and let go with the confines they're holding themselves in. You want to challenge their standard thinking to think differently. And there's different ways I do that, but one example would be give them an easel pad, and I'll tell a team, fill up that easel pad, you got 5 minutes. And I'll push them to keep, and I'll walk over and say, now double it. And just start pumping out ideas. And once you start putting a little challenge on them, finally with some of you, it's like, you just kind of push them a little bit, and they start to get frustrated, and they'll be, let's buy pink elephants. And everybody will bust out laughing. I mean, laughter is the magic moment that happens. When they laugh, they usually let go of, now I can say anything without judgment. Make sense? So you got to challenge them on this possibility thing a little bit and have them free themselves up. And laughter is usually the magic that happens when I see teams actually produce the best results. So you actually got to work them through that process. They have to feel comfortable they can give you an honest opinion and not be judged. And it's not a time to judge. We'll do that in the logic, which we just did. The last one is the impact. What's the impact of the people? So you've made your decision now. You have to consider how that decision will influence the people. So is this something we can live with? What is everyone's point of view on the issue? What are the values behind the solutions? What is the most ideal solution? How can we maintain harmony? How will they be affected? And will they buy into this? Again, find questions on that list that are most appropriate for you or add your own. Now, what we just covered are 4 types of questions, and there actually is a natural sequence to them. There's the facts, possibilities, logic, and then the impact. And this is actually a model that's based on Myers-Briggs personality type, and it's called the Z model. But these questions can work for a leader to really pull the team capabilities out, don't they? Can you see the possibility? The results are amazing because you're actually going to engage them in the process. They're going to come up with the best solutions. It's really a really amazing journey when you do this. So you've got this. You've gone through the 4 processes. You've got the facts. You've got the possibilities. You narrowed down your possibilities to what's most logical, what's the pros and cons, what's going to work. You're going to understand the impact of the people. If you engage the team and the people it affects, you're actually going to minimize that last one, right? If you engage the people that are involved in the decision, you're actually going to minimize that impact on the people. So the last piece is now you got to have consensus, true consensus. The process of questioning can bring clarity and have real consensus and true commitment. And I kind of said it before. Do you have true commitment? Are they going to go down to the cafeteria and say this is never going to work? If they're saying that, it's not going to work. So you want real consensus, and that's when you really have to use that being present and curious and really listen for what's not said. If you can start practicing that first skill, you will hear it all the time. I hear hesitation in your voice. What are you thinking? And again, maybe you need to pull somebody out and on the side and say, something doesn't seem to be working with you. What's going on? You have to be able to challenge that to get true consensus and real consensus and true commitment. So consensus plus commitment is natural accountability. Don't we often try to hold the people accountable? It's external. When you have commitment, it's internal. If I ask you to do something and you say you do it, will you do it? Very high likely, right? But if I tell you, what's the chances of my success? I could tell you from being a professional coach, I initially, with my ego, I kept telling people what they should do to fix their lives. How did that go over? Who has parents? They've been telling us our whole life. How'd that work out? Right? But seriously, when we start letting go and let them make the best decisions for them, they actually really go on the journey with you. When you buy them in, they have true buy-in necessary for true implementation. They have that commitment. They have that accountability. So lastly, who is going to do what by when? Part of your implementation has to be a plan. Document it and keep following up on it. This process may take a little longer if you do the facilitation process, but I can promise you you're going to have amazing results. And in the process, you're going to have better outcomes with employee engagement and satisfaction, and naturally, you will actually be viewed as a better leader. So just to recap, as we go through this, I want you to actively listen, then I'll ask you to reflect and think about the takeaway that you want to have moving forward. What was something you learned? What was something you can do when you leave here today? So active listening was being present and being curious. Reflective thinking was about the pause and reflect, capture and clarify. And then lastly, ask powerful questions. Engage them in the process. Ask the facts, the possibilities, the logic, and the impact. So with that in mind, I want you to share at your table. You're going to each have, just do like a 30-second biggest takeaway, what you're going to do. At your table, share it with your teammates. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. All right, let me ask you to do this now. At your table, pick what was the most impactful thing that you learned today. What was the biggest aha? And it may be from one of your table mates or one of your partners you had your conversation with. All right, as a room, let's all stand up. What I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to have someone holler out. We'll just start, whoever wants, let's look at this group, this full table over here. I'm going to have them share their biggest takeaway today, their biggest aha. If it's the same as yours, you can have a seat. So first table, please.
I think we thought it was important for effective communication on all levels of the business from the top to the bottom. And as long as you do that and everybody's buying into the same program, and the customer service is going to really follow along with those lines.
So what I heard is effective communications at all levels of the organization. Great job. Have a seat. If yours was the same as effective communications at all levels, have a seat. Who's next? Who wants to go next?
Just being present. You take the time to come to the office, put the phone down, stop the computer.
All right. Michael said, be present. Put your phone away, turn off your computer screen, and be with the person. If being present's your takeaway, have a seat. Pinellas County. Shut up. So, if your biggest takeaway is a shut up, Scott and the group can have a seat. Table over here, Tom's table.
Reflective thinking.
Reflective thinking. So hear things out first and then reflectively think. If reflective thinking is your biggest takeaway, have a seat. Thank you. Sandy, you still up?
I had another one. We might not have consensus.
This is going to take a couple minutes, all right? So just bear with me.
How long do we have?
So go ahead.
I'm sorry, what are the facts?
Well, you jumped to possibilities. I was using the team more effectively in that Z model.
So
Capitalizing on everybody's strengths.
capitalize on every strength, use the Z model. And what she said was right, because in Myers-Briggs, one of the first two and one of the second two are very natural. Most common in leadership roles were a lot of sensing, and a lot about the thinking, and we're a lot about the logic. So that's why we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. We don't think about new possibilities, and we also don't think about the impact on the people in general in the Western leadership area. Your table, please.
The capture and clarify, being able to clarify the conversation without taking it over.
Nice.
And disrupting the flow.
Beautiful. I actually had a little bit more advanced techniques I showed in the conflict program yesterday, but we were just limited on time today. But capture and clarify, excellent. Have a seat if that's yours.
We've got, we're doing some training with our staff, and so our big takeaway is we can use this as an icebreaker for some of that training.
Fantastic.
Using the active questioning and things like that to bring some of the more reserved people out of their shell.
Nice.
We have good ideas, but sometimes we don't hear them in those kind of sessions.
So use it as an icebreaker, using the questions. And if I can help you with any icebreaker, please let me know. Reach out to me. Darlene, your table?
How quickly we can build rapport in 60 seconds when we're actively listening.
How quickly we can build rapport in 60 seconds when we're actively listening.
Follow the process and let it work
Follow the process and let it work for you. Wow, I couldn't ask for a better review of my program. Wow, was that scripted? Listen, my final thoughts. When you serve out of love for others, you will positively impact people in ways you can't even imagine. And I don't know where he went. There he is. I'm going to be selfish and thank a few people. 20 years ago, I was sitting in a room just like you are now, in a conference room in Orlando. And one of my bucket list items was to be on the main stage in the main conference. And David believed in me. He was the first one, and he asked me to come. Second, acknowledge David. My NSA family, I actually got two families here. I got my fire service family. There's several, Danny, Michael, Patrick from EMS, so I got that family connection too. I got my NSA family with Barry and Sandy and Robin here. She's been amazing support also. I also have a very special person, Phoebe and Will Ezel are my business coaches and just personal friends. It takes a team, and I wanted to thank all of them. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that, but I'm proud to say my team rocks. Thanks.